All right, moving along.
How would you work to increase transparency and public trust in council decision making, especially around development and spending?
Yeah, so this is one in the forum that actually took some heat over because the criticism was basically I don't necessarily feel like I should listen to the public, and that's just not right. Um, my point was essentially I don't expect everyone in the public to be able of understanding all of these complex things that go on in the government, you know, to the fullest extent, right? And you shouldn't. You got better things to do, right? You got to deal with your kids. You got to deal with getting to work. You got to deal with maintaining your yard. Like there's tons of things that you can be busy with. You don't need to be bogged down in all these specific city issues, right? What you want to do is you want to elect people that have technical expertise that can make these decisions for you, right? That's why you want good leaders to represent you. That's why we have a representative republic. Is because you want to put those people in charge. It's then their problem, and you want to trust in the fact that they're going to be able to take care of things for you. So what I was trying to get at is essentially that you should trust that I have the skill set to serve your best interests, and then from everything that I've been able to put in front of you, you trust that our goals are essentially aligned. Like I'm looking to fix issues with traffic. I'm looking to fix issues with infrastructure. I'm looking to make sure we have smart development and real smart development, not just saying no, right? But you should be able to trust in the fact that I know enough of what I'm doing that you don't need necessarily to know. Now that's not to say that you should be completely in the dark and I shouldn't share anything with you, right? Obviously that's not what we're looking to do here. But if, let's say, the Catawba Street project, the multifamily with retail, complete redevelopment of Catawba Street, $5 million in funding from Gaston County. They were going to donate for 80 Field. Like that's a great project. Now, if you come to me and you say, "Hey, I'm really concerned about this project. I think the multifamily or the apartments in that area are just going to be a traffic nightmare," and I think it's bad. Then I should be able to tell you, "Okay, I hear your concern. I'm not going to ignore that. But I've researched the traffic data that they've provided. I've looked at the traffic modeling. I've understood the transportation reports and the modeling and everything else, and I've concluded from that you don't need to be as concerned as you think you need to be, right? And at the end of the day, there's all of these long laundry list of benefits that we're going to get from this development that I don't need you to be concerned about item A when I'm concerned about item A too, but here's all the reasons why I can overcome with benefit your concern about item A. So this is probably even better explained through like the Saki Express project, where I had a very stark contrast to some other people, where you're taking a local business who pays taxes in Belmont, who are friendly to the community. Lots of people enjoy facilitating their restaurant. They hit a lease issue where they had to move out and they're looking for a new location. They're desperately trying to stay in Belmont, but they don't have a lot of options of where they can go. We're trying to redevelop the Wilkinson corridor. We have an undesirable self-storage unit, and we're looking to put this restaurant in its place. There is a concern that traffic is going to increase down 6th Street and cause the residents in the Adams Bluff neighborhood a little bit of concern because there's going to be more traffic there. However, at the same time, when you look at the traffic data of the facility, you look at all the information they have, you look at the traffic on Wilkinson Boulevard, you think critically about it, and you say, okay, we're going to have vehicles that are going to turn from Wilkinson Boulevard on their way home. They're going to pull onto 6th Street, they're going to stop, pick up food for dinner, and they're going to get back on. Well, when they leave, there's two choices they can make. They can go back out on Wilkinson Boulevard from 6th Street. They can go down 6th Street and get on Catawba Street. Or they can go out back to Wilkinson Boulevard, go down towards Catawba Street at the bridge, and then go down Catawba Street that way. If it's me, I'm probably going back on Wilkinson Boulevard and doing the U-turn because I don't want to use the speed humps, right? So that's a traffic calming policy that the city has implemented to discourage traffic from going down that way. So we can assume that chances are, even if every single person that shows up at rush hour to go to get food, it's a few hundred cars. Now, a few hundred cars down 6th Street is probably a problem. But if there's a few hundred cars going down 6th Street, they're going to line up at Catawba Street almost the whole way back because they're going to get stopped there from the continuous traffic through Catawba Street. So they're not going to do that. There's just human nature is going to take over, and they're going to say this is a bad route.
And the traffic pattern would tend to be, I think, that the people in East Belmont might use 6th Street. I'm not going to use 6th Street. I'm going to come on one of the main drags and go back and forth on Wilkinson or Keener. It just doesn't make sense to try to mess with 6th Street.
Exactly, because you're ultimately going to find the path of least resistance,
That's right.
Catawba Street can handle a lot more traffic than 6th Street. So people, generally speaking, are not going to take 6th Street when they have Catawba Street as an option, right? Now, these are things that we can think through critically. I understand traffic design, traffic patterns, how that generally works. But then the criticism is, okay, well, the city's transportation analyst said, hey, you should probably get a traffic study. Okay, well, why? Because the code said so. All right, well, that's why the applicant comes in through conditional rezoning and they say, look, we understand that you want this, but here's why we don't think it's necessary. And then the city gets to decide, okay, do we agree with the applicant that it's not really necessary, or do we want the traffic study? Now, ultimately, council said we want the traffic study. So that seems benign on its own, but you're telling now a small business, go spend $30,000 to get a traffic study, delay your project by 2 months, so that city council can hold a piece of paper in their hand that they don't understand. Because ultimately, the traffic study is not a perfect method of determining how people are going to use the roads. It's there to look at theoretical traffic counts, not even the data that the applicant had. It's theoretical data. It gets plugged into a theoretical model, and it runs traffic in a computer model that's based on an algorithm that somebody put together in the transportation department. It's pretty good. It's much better than us just spitballing and guessing, but it's not going to take into account human nature. It's not going to take into account how people will actually drive, because it just basically says, hey, here's, statistical analysis of where I think people will turn, how much traffic is going to go towards this artery, how much traffic is going to go this artery, and it's limited by how much information you can feed the model. So that $30,000 isn't really going to give you anything necessary.
Well, and one way I think of it too, my husband will drive Hawley Avenue to go around from Keener onto Walmart. I'm not doing that. I'm going to take the straight shot. I'm going down Keener and take a left on Wilkinson and get to Walmart. So most of the people are going to be on Wilkinson and stay there, and on the main thoroughfares, they're not going to go back through.
Right, because as congested as
Yeah.
those are, it's still better to run on those main roads that are controlled by traffic lights than it is to go down a road that has speed humps and stop signs, where if you had 300 cars on 6th Street, you're going to be stopped dead the whole way back, and you're never going to be able to make that right turn on
So
Catawba
I
Street.
won't do that again.
Exactly. You might do it once and say, hey, this is better, and then you'll never do it again because you'll be like, this is awful. Especially with the on-street parking and everything else on 6th Street. Like, it's not a corridor. It's never meant to be a corridor. It's not going to be used as a corridor, because ultimately human nature is going to take over, and it's going to do what you want it to do. So the problem essentially is, we know what's going to happen. We know that there's a traffic issue on Wilkinson Boulevard, and we know that 6th Street can't accommodate more traffic. But the traffic study and all that traffic analysis and all that effort that's going to be put forward is not going to tell anything that we don't already know. So then that's where you have to say, okay, I have the technical expertise that I would be willing to say, this isn't going to give us anything, and it's not necessary. And then you make the judgment call and you say, okay, is this something that we need to further explain to people in the Adams Bluff neighborhood? And we need to say, okay, look, yes, it's probably going to increase traffic, but not nearly as much as you think. And you don't need to be concerned about 300 cars traveling down 6th Street, because it's just not realistic. It's not possible, right? But that's why, the transparency issue is, I'm more than happy to tell you, hey, this is why I'm not concerned, but that doesn't mean you have to understand that or agree with me or anything else. I want you to trust in the fact that I have the technical expertise that helps you get past the fact that you don't really understand. And maybe that's not good enough.
It should be, because if we weren't going to listen to our planning and zoning board who have the technical expertise, then we shouldn't have them to begin with. So we do need to listen to you guys.
Well, and then of course my cynical side of that was, if I wasn't sure, like if I didn't have the ability to sit in front of everybody and tell you how I would vote and how I think we need to move forward, I'd hand out cards to everyone in the audience, and I'd let them check the box, yes or no, and then whatever public opinion is, that's what we'll do. But that's not how this works, right? I mean, that you need to believe that the people that you're electing are qualified to do the job, and that they can serve in your best interest. And ultimately, that should be good enough. I mean, you want to raise your concern when you have them, of course. Like, I'm not saying, hey, I don't want to hear from anyone because I don't think they have anything valuable to say. Like, that's not it, right? But when you bring me a problem, I want you to trust in the fact that I'm going to be able to figure it out better than you, or you have a great idea and you want to tell me about it, and then let's sit down and talk about it. Because I'm all for that, right? Which is part of the reason why I think having a good, well-rounded council is a good thing, right?
I do.
But as far as like, well, I'm just going to listen to the people. Come on, like that. that's great. You should, but you don't always need to listen to everyone to give you direction on what to do. That's not why you're there, right? You're there to serve the best interests of the people.
If that were the case, we'd all listen to everybody on Facebook, and a lot of people on Facebook don't have all the correct information.
Yeah, and people get riled up because they don't know any of the information in detail, and some, I mean, hell, there's people that get to the meetings, the rezoning hearings and stuff like that, and they haven't read through any of the details. And there's been plenty of times. I mean, I've sat on the board for 6 years, and people come up and they'll be really all up in arms, and then they'll listen to the whole presentation of the meeting, and they'll leave going, oh, I feel like I've learned more about this, and now I'm not nearly as concerned. So that's part of it too. Is there's a responsibility on the public side too, to be informed, and you have full access to anyone on city council. You're going to have their email address. You can show up at city council. You can voice your concerns. You can step in at these public hearings, and you can voice your opinion. And usually most people don't show up. So then that's the other side of the coin too. Is like, hey, if you want me to know about your concerns, you got to tell me, and I'm happy to listen. But that's how we go full circle.